Happy New Year. I'd like to call this meeting to order. Welcome to the Housing Commission's January 7th regular Housing Commission meeting. This is a hybrid meeting with the Housing Commission members, city staff, and members of the public participating in the Cypress Conference Room via Zoom. And the meeting is called to order at 6:33 p.m. I'd like to introduce staff and Housing Commissioner members present. For staff, we have the housing manager, Tim Long, and management analyst, Ariana Milton. And moving on to Commissioner roll call, Vice Chair Beely.
Here.
Commissioner Chappell. Here. Commissioner Dumont.
Yes, I'm here, and I believe it's AB 2449. I'm hoping that's the right number.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Commissioner Cranen. Here. Commissioner Orson.
Here.
Chair Schweitzer is here, and Commissioner Wong is absent. Moving along, Ariana, would you please provide some instructions to the Housing Commission and members of the public on how the meeting will proceed?
Yes, thank you, Chair Schweitzer and members of the Housing Commission. Welcome everyone to the January 7th regular meeting of the Housing Commission, and thank you for attending. Staff will engage cameras and microphones to make presentations and respond to the members of the Housing Commission. For members of the public who are in attendance and wish to provide comments on an item on tonight's agenda, after the chair calls for public comments on the item you wish to speak on, please engage the raise hand feature at the bottom of your screen for virtual participants. For those who are calling in from a landline or a cell phone, please press *9. And for those in person, please complete a speaker card and bring it to me directly. That concludes the instructions, and I return the meeting to the chair.
Thank you for that. And the next item is public comment. So under public comment, the public may address the Housing Commission on any subject that's not listed on the agenda. Each speaker may address the Housing Commission under public comment for a limit of 3 minutes. You're not required to provide your name or city of address, but it is helpful. And the Housing Commission cannot act on items brought up during this time. So therefore, the Housing Commission cannot respond to non-agenda items under the public comment section, other than to provide general information. And with that, I don't see anyone in the room, but is there anyone online for public comment?
No, we have no public comment online or in person.
All right. Well, on to some action items, or should I say presentations and proclamations. First up, we have a presentation from staff on the BMR, the below market rate tenant recertification.
Okay.
And management, Ariana Milton, will you please make the presentation?
Yes. All right. Okay, good evening, members of the public, staff, and commissioners. Tonight, I'm going to just be giving a brief presentation on item D1, which is going to be the BMR tenant recertification report. So, to get into it, the BMR rental program that we have here in the city of Menlo Park, it's administered through the city's third-party housing provider, Housing Group LLC, which is also known as Housing Inc. We have a dedicated member of that team that's assigned to the BMR rental side of things and also the BMR ownership side of things, and they use the BMR guidelines to facilitate that process. Per the BMR guidelines, in section 11.1.7, the city must annually certify a tenant's household income to continuously qualify for the program. A BMR tenant no longer qualifies to stay in the unit if their income becomes ineligible and does not meet their requirements for 2 consecutive years. This could be due to a tenant being over income or having a household income that is over 80% AMI. And then just as a reminder, if the tenants in a BMR unit do become ineligible to continue living there, then the unit becomes a market rate unit, and the next available comparable unit becomes that development's BMR unit. Also, just want to highlight another section of the guidelines, which is 11.1.8, which kind of goes into the details of what the annual report needs to obtain. And that also requires that all those who occupy a BMR unit, they're subject specifically to an annual tenant certification on or before July 1st, per that section. And then also just want to highlight that the report, the certification report needs to include a summary of the certifications and then also the current occupancy status for each apartment development that participates in the BMR program. So just also as a reminder, wanted to highlight how the BMR rents are calculated, and the biggest factor in that is going to be the San Mateo County income limits. They're the biggest factor in determining what those rents are going to be. They are established by HCD, and normally annually they're updated, but I will say that there was no change from last year's income limits to this year. Just want to highlight that. And then just to go over the actual meat of the report. So we have here the BMR apartment complex summary. This highlights 6 apartment complexes that participate in the BMR housing program. So that would be Antoine Menlo, Loom, Middle Plaza, Realm, Springline, and Vasara. And that would include a total of 185 BMR units. And we also have a percentage breakdown showing how much of the units are considered very low, low, and moderate income levels. And I can go back to this stuff during our discussion. And then also included are the bedroom unit sizes. It shows the breakdown of what units have how many bedrooms. It's going to be between 1 bedrooms, studios, 1 bedrooms, 2 bedrooms, and 3 bedroom units. And also you can see the percentage of how many type of each unit happens to be in those specific developments and then all together out of the total. And then lastly, just showing here is just the recertification status of each of the developments as a whole. So this is going to include the number of vacancies, number of like new applications and renewals that are currently in progress, and then any of those that are currently exceeding the BMR income limits in year 1. But that does not mean that they're disqualified from the program, because you have to consecutively not qualify for 2 years. So just highlighting that, and yeah. And that's really it. It's a very short presentation, but here to put the slides back up if you guys have questions. Tim, do you have anything that you wanted to add?
Yeah, any clarifying questions? Since it is a presentation, but yeah, if you have any clarifying questions,
I have 2 questions. The first off, you said that it's all qualified as 80%, even though there are some that are very low and some that are low income, or do they qualify for the classifications?
So we can't, they are not able to make more than 80% AMI. If they do reach that threshold, then
no, we have units for very low and moderate income.
yeah.
So depending on what they apply for, if it's a moderate
Yeah.
income unit, they cannot exceed the moderate.
Okay, so it's whatever.
Yeah, it's whatever
Yeah.
classification limit that they're
Yes.
originally like qualified for. If they go over that, then they're in danger of being disqualified from the program.
Yeah.
But in theory, someone could go up and say like they make a very low, and then as they progress in their career, they can go up to the next bracket in the affordability.
So they wouldn't get a increased position in the lottery then. So it'd probably be unlikely to transfer between different PMR units, or.
I'm sorry, what was
Oh,
the
sorry.
question?
If someone is in a very low 60% unit
Mhm.
and their income goes to, I don't know, 75%. They're no longer qualifying for that 60% unit.
The 50%, very low is 50.
Oh,
Okay,
excuse me.
it's just, yeah.
They're no longer qualifying for that 50% unit. But they would potentially qualify for an 80% unit, but they wouldn't have priority to move into a different.
Or does
unit,
that
right?
swap over and then they backfill?
No,
Okay,
it's kind of a floating unit.
That's what-
Okay.
As mentioned, if they go, it becomes a market rate unit, but the next one will replace the BMR units,
But
so
it wouldn't become a 80%.
And that's what would be.
It would become a market unit.
no, no, understood, so it's very low, you're going to low.
Yeah.
And so I would think the next. Yeah, that's an interesting one, we haven't, in my experience, come across that here. But. The program is designed to. They're, again, floating units, as long as the percentages. The required percentages are adhered to. But yeah, I don't think we've come across a very low to a low and then. Because yes, I could, let's say there are 1 bedroom and I don't know, the next one's a 2 bedroom, so.
That's a-
There are some programmatic challenges, but it's to.
So I work in a property where we're a similar setting. Until you get to where you're no longer eligible under those criteria, it doesn't matter. You redesignate units as they become available to cover the allocation for what they were already. So if you've designated 50 and so, if this person becomes ineligible for that allocation, you wait for the next available, and then you assign that to make up the number for the 50%.
Gotcha.
So
Okay.
as long as you're under
you're
80, you're not, yeah. Yeah, until you go over is then when you have 2 years to go market rate, but it's not that rigid that, oh, I'm in a 50%, I gotta move, no.
And how do the apartments, like the managers or complexes select how much of each designation of low?
It is in the project summary for the funding for the original.
So let's say we approve
Well,
tax there, and we just, you know, if we don't see enough very lows in that part, we should say, hey, we can see more.
It's a project by project, as you recall, there are some BMR agreements that you have approved that. Initially, not initially, developments for the most part are required to provide 15% of. The guidelines say low, if they're rentals, very low and moderate income. If they're rentals, you target the 80% AMI, so basically 15% low income. And so based on that, we take the units based on their proposed 1, 2, and 3 bedroom mixes, or whatever unit mix they have. We try to, not take, but have BMR units that mirror that, unit mix. Try to reflect, if it's 50-50 of 1 and 2 bedrooms, then we'll take 50-50 1 and 2 bedroom BMR units. And then they make the initial proposal, this is how we propose to fulfill the 15% BMR, and then it's up to the city to review. And if acceptable, then we put it in a BMR agreement. And then moving forward to 55 years, that is what they have to adhere to. For that.
So my second question was, I know that there are more affordable units in the city, apartment units, but usually they're 100% affordable. Is that treated differently because of their nonprofit owned and these are private for-profits that are running? Is that kind of the separation?
Yeah, this is known as inclusionary housing, where a certain percentage is set aside, while the 100%, your mid-tens, bridge housing, what have you, those are 100%, and those are governed by the financing and the regulatory agreements that come with the financing. If it's tax credit, if it's state funding, federal funding, that's all dictated.
I guess following on the fact that, is it possible for those units to have different or stricter requirements? For example, could 100% affordable program remove somebody who didn't qualify on the first year?
The devil's in the details, but there are some projects that may have different preferences based on the funding,
Okay,
therefore.
but there's not a like a floor requirement for below market housing across the city, if that makes sense.
So floor,
Like. Viewing the someone can't be evicted, you know, until 2 consecutive years, or they don't move out of the program for 2 consecutive years, that's sort of a tenant protection, right? And so I'm wondering if there's another mechanism to provide that tenant protection to other people in other affordable housing projects, or whether that's only something that applies to these inclusionary programs.
This is what the city of Menlo Park has set up, but. Other jurisdictions for their inclusionary requirements, they could choose to. I'm not saying they would, but $1 over, or they could be. If you will, more lenient, it just really depends, but this is what, the city has to prevent displacement.
Thank you for that. I guess. Sort of a different question, you mentioned that the AMI numbers are typically updated yearly, but this year they weren't. Was that because we believe the conditions on the ground didn't change, or were they not updated for some other procedure?
They weren't.
the Senate,
Oh, even though the.
That's dictated by the state, that's determined by the state, with multiple variables.
Okay, is it typical that they might not change in a year, or they might change, it's just that there is a yearly update schedule?
Typically, there's a slight increase, but like in 08, the Great Recession,
Mhm.
there was a decrease.
Sure.
So, but yeah, if you really want some interesting reading, you can read how they each said. But it's typically based on the HUDs, and they might tweak it a little bit, yeah.
How old is it Illumins?
Hmm?
How old is the property with the most vacants?
Well, how old is the property?
those are only small units there.
Oh,
Yeah.
Lumen Visara, there was. Well, long story short, they're the newest, but there was, yeah.
Those are all the last 5 years now, right, or 8 years?
For the most part, I think Anton Menlo may be a little older.
Yeah, I'd say 10.
Yeah, Anton in middle, yeah. So.
Oh.
Yeah, that's the.
Oh, Commissioner Dumont, you can go ahead.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, I was wondering just about, so this is the first time I've seen this report, the status. I mean, what should we be looking for, if anything, in this, in the numbers that we're looking at? Thanks.
I don't know if there's honestly anything, this is kind of like a snapshot, or this is where we are with our BMR program in terms of, tenant, not eligibility, but just state of the tenants. And this is where we are. So I don't think, there's anything. I mean, of course, if you see a number of, let's say, vacancies, maybe that's something. But I'm not sure if there's this is. Yeah, it's just more of an annual report type thing.
It's
Yeah.
like not necessarily, I don't think, meant to inspire like like official action or anything tonight. It's more of just trying to kind of catch you guys up to speed and let you know what the rental side of the BMR units is looking like and how the recertification process has gone for the year. So
And there cannot be an action. This is a consultation.
yeah, exactly.
Okay. So we're,
Well, I do notice that we have a member of the public, so you just took public comment before you came in the room, so I'll go back to public comment.
Okay,
And-
the public comment on the presentation.
Oh,
It's not
Yeah,
official
yeah,
action, so no.
Okay.
no comment.
Well, and-
But it's opening up for public comment, so
Awesome.
Or yours.
Yeah.
I came to hear this because it wasn't like an attachment that I could just look at, so thank you for having me. I was really struck at a previous meeting when we were going over the BMR changes. Tim, housing manager one. We said, we've assured the city council for that about this process, that we are very determined to recertify our tenants and make sure that everything is proper. What I'm more interested in, or what really struck me, is that you didn't say the same thing about the property management and the tenant experience. Because the city paid for these units to become affordable. Like, this is our investment, right? It is in lieu of a housing impact fee that we get the subsidy for these units. And so we should shepherd our resources, like, really carefully, and make sure that the tenants are being treated with respect, that their units are being maintained and all those things, which they probably are. But like, is there a process for checking on that? And like, for example, it's hard to tell from this report how stable an experience it is for tenants in these units. I think some of the commissioners were asking questions like, if they make $1 too much, do they have to leave? Or, and you answered, there's the floating unit system, so no, they don't, they just have to pay more rent. And presumably they can afford it, so that's a good system. Is it working? Because sometimes when your rent goes up and thresholds are too wide, you really can't afford it, right? Because now you're making the lowest possible qualifying income, but the rent is set at the maximum. Because we do allow our market rate developers to do that, and I think our nonprofit partners don't do that. They come up with systems to make it more easier for a tenant to stay in the unit as they earn more without these big discontinuities. So I wonder if this report could be reworked to also assess the quality of the city's investment in these BMR units. That's my question, comment, I don't know, proposal for, well, to ask more questions about this.
Thank you for your comment.
You're over there.
Well, moving on to some regular business. Under regular business, the Housing Commission receives informational presentations in addition to considering policy matters and administrative actions. And for our first item tonight, we will have the approval of the Housing Commission meeting minutes for the December 3rd, 2025 meeting. And before we get into discussion of that, I'll open it up for public comment on the meeting minutes.
There is no public comments at this time.
All right, well, I'll bring it back to the commission if there's any clarifying questions or discussion, perhaps some typos, grammatical errors, and anything that anyone caught.
Was, it says that Beal and Crane are absent. Was not the meeting where you were in the car and you showed up?
Yeah, I showed up, I was halfway through, yeah.
Yes, so according to our city clerk,
That's
yeah, you're technically, even though you're in the car, we see you,
Okay.
you're not marked here until you're actually physically present, so. Yeah.
Okay. Good question.
We appreciate it,
Now we know.
And Commissioner Dumont on Zoom, did you have any questions about the meeting minutes or?
No, they looked fine.
Okay. Well, with that, I move that we approve the meeting minutes from the December 3rd, 2025 meeting.
Second.
Okay, so we have a motion by Chair Switzer and a second by Commissioner Osler to approve the Housing Commission meeting minutes for December 3rd, 2025. I will now do a roll call vote. Vice Chair Beely,
Yes.
Commissioner Chopper,
Yes.
Commissioner Dumont,
Yes.
Commissioner Crayton,
Yes.
Commissioner Ostler,
Yes.
Chair Switzer,
Yes.
and then Commissioner Wong is absent. The motion passes 6-0 with one absence.
All right, well, E2, we have a item to discuss and assess future housing commission ad hoc committees. Before we get into that discussion, we can open it up for public comment.
This looks like we have one public comment.
Rework the, recertification.
Wait, let me at least give you a lot of time. Hold on. Give me a sec, give me a sec. That's it?
Thank you for having me, and thank you for your commitment to the city and to housing.
Thank you.
All right, that was the only public comment we had, so. no more.
Well. Bringing it back to the commission, I believe this was an item that we discussed at the December 3rd meeting. Of having an interest of developing some more ad hoc committees to have some further engagement with some of the work that we're doing. Maybe to shepherd some of our work plan goals and priorities forward. And we currently have, to my knowledge, an ad hoc committee for their engagement. And as for other ad hoc committees, I don't believe that we have any others. So if there's any other suggestions, I heard a public comment about having one about perhaps packaging our recertification process, having a little bit more information, kind of the tenant experience. Maybe there could be some limitations on the city side, but perhaps that could be something maybe the commission could look into. Not sure if anyone else
Is
has
the,
suggestions or.
is the engagement committee tasked with also gauging the temperature of the community regarding housing? Is that part of their mandate necessarily?
I believe that our purpose was vague at best, to capture a wide net.
Right,
But I think that the intent of that, which it's Commissioner Dumont, Commissioner Crane and myself,
right.
was to help with that community engagement of it, for specific, for housing.
Yeah, I think most, so just my personal viewpoint so far has been, we've been very focused on outbound, non-inbound.
Right,
So that's maybe you got a.
I would just suggest that, the subcommittees are based on this, the commission's work plan.
Okay.
And so the work plan has been provided, if you have, page 24, if you would like to review
That might be a good reason.
what the, commission's, work plans, so.
Yeah. so that- Continue.
Oh, are you, or, yeah, you can put it on the screen.
and I think we're putting it on the screen here for people in the room. But as we're waiting for that, memory serves me right, we had the community engagement goal, and then we have two others that. Will soon be on the screen.
Yeah. Just as a precursor, number one is housing development, number two is community engagement, and number, was there a number three? Yeah, anti-displacement, yes.
Um,
Mhm.
well, I guess I brainstormed some ideas. I'm not sure I like any of them. But one thing is whether there's like NOFA stuff that needs to happen this year, and whether it would make sense to form some digital PD focused on that. I guess tenant protections and anti-displacement seems like it could be a fit. I guess I don't know what it would do above and beyond this work that staff is already doing. I think last time we talked a bit about, like thinking about seniors as a community that's particularly vulnerable to displacement, maybe there's something there, yeah.
Carolyn?
Well, I know these are all, I guess. I was struggling a little bit with like what the. The valuable work that we can do as housing commissioners is, because it seems like. Staff does an excellent job and that does good work and, like. It seems like the role might be to investigate and advise on policy, but that's sort of. Difficult, like, I don't know if we can top what you've already done.
I can, first, a couple things, in regards to, you had first mentioned NOFAs, the. The housing commission will review staff's recommendations for submitted NOFAs, and we are having a NOFA for 2026. They're still. Scheduling it when we will release. But we will have a NOFA for this, for 2026.
And was that for 320 Sheridan or the 123 Independence?
No, 320 was approved with an over-the-counter NOFA. And Independence was done in 2024, but one of the things, is that, yes, we have some housing funds, and so we'll just. See what comes in.
Is there anything that needs to happen? Well, I know there are things that need to happen before the note is actually issued, but is there anything that. If we were to form something we could usefully do in terms of. Where do we think the NOFA should be targeted for scoring or?
In regards to NOFAs, I think just, your feedback to staff's recommendation.
Okay, so we'll wait until after we're.
Yeah, I'm. Not sure how the housing commission. Would work with the developers.
Yeah.
Or just, anyways, in regards to the NOFA. Anti-displacement, kind of jumping ahead, but next month. You will be reviewing, the anti-displacement draft. And just as a suggest. Maybe based on the results of the draft. That may help. Direct the housing commission. With potential.
So have an ad hoc to go deep on anti-displacement and any recommendations.
Based on the,
Yeah, that could be a possibility or opportunity. Right,
based on the previous presentation and the city council feedback on it, I would. Predict that maybe tenant legal. Representation and protection is gonna be a major element of that, so maybe. That would be, I don't know what you would. Do. Because obviously that would have to happen police and council ultimately, but. Yeah, produce a subcommittee that was focused on making recommendations around. That, if that's going to be a major part of the work.
I think maybe there could be some guidance in our work plan goal 3. I think we had a little bit of foresight when we were writing that. Perhaps maybe in the low priority would be kind of a low hanging fruit, if you wanna call it that. We had written in there to create a collection of some personal accounts to demonstrate the impacts of displacement. That could be something that is collected by an ad hoc committee of the commission. As for some of these higher priority items, those are more geared towards kind of our regular business at the commission itself. But I think for probably a general creation of an ad hoc one regarding anti-displacement. would seem fitting based on the discussion here, and perhaps that could tie in a little bit to the public comment that we received about perhaps how we can better understand what the current tenants are experiencing in their units. It's not necessarily just those that have been displaced, it's trying to get ahead of the game, so we aren't displacing tenants, so better understanding the holistic, the whole picture, I think would be maybe an outcome that
I
would be
like that.
helpful, so.
I think, yeah, so like that would formalize, we basically say the existing subcommittee is about the outgoing public, your community outreach, and making a new one that's about collecting accounts and understanding what the experience of people in housing or affected by housing difficulties is. Well, naming is the least important of them, but I'd be interested to hear. I like that suggestion.
I mean, so just well, I mean, but displacement's broader than just affordable.
Yeah.
Right.
So it's.
It could be due to say work, it would be a multitude of
Or
factors,
just,
that's,
you
yeah,
know,
right.
somebody raising rents in the house or, you know, whatever.
I mean, we're gonna have to figure out how to responsibly and ethically get in touch with people, but I think that's, you know, part of
I
it.
mean, how are we figuring out displacement numbers now, like where are we relying on these data from the city, right? Is this just like an additional, I guess, ask?
I think
From the housing commission?
when we were writing the work plan, the intention here was to try to go a little bit beyond just numbers, like. I think we were talking about like the fact that this is maybe not something that's. Like a human element. It doesn't make sense sometimes, like.
Well, maybe it could be added to the existing like qualitative survey. To actually capture some of the. That information.
I'm trying to remember, I mean, if there was even, I know that we've talked about numbers, but I can't remember if there was actually a. Maybe you can tell me, is there actually a displacement, I know there's reporting, not. Is there a dashboard or?
I don't think at a granular level.
The closest is probably evictions, and that's kind of. Because displacement is so wide
Yeah,
ranging.
there's something.
That. But it's. Evictions could be a good. Or tip the iceberg type thing, but yeah, actual numbers. Are,
So there's reporting on evictions. Or at least some level of it.
there has been eviction studies that. Kind of jumping ahead, but the plan, the draft plan is. Is based on those studies, so. Yeah,
Well, maybe.
but true numbers are.
Yeah.
They truly, yeah.
Maybe it's good to get the data, especially for getting, you know, qualitative data, like, won't have the full picture of how many people it is, but it will tell some like individual stories that might give us some color, like it's actually.
That sounds fun.
Yeah, from experience, I think, evictions are great, but a lot actually happens before the eviction. We want that number on the settlements,
Yeah.
because that's where a lot is happening.
And yeah, maybe,
Before the eviction and settle, people have to move out voluntarily, that's the one.
So it doesn't show up.
and maybe someone gets acquired from the housing commission or they're starting to have some of those issues, they tell their story, you know, although we're not gonna capture every person who has those issues, like, at least we'll have some more idea of how it happens. I mean, mhm, yeah.
So, just also making sure I understand, if we decide that. This is a good idea, what we need to do is agendize another item to form this committee at future, right? Or is it?
Correct.
That's correct.
And what staff may suggest is, yeah, take a look at the plan. Certainly will be, next month, we'll be taking feedback from the housing commission. But take a look at the plan, that one provides some additional guidance for a subcommittee, and certainly, when it goes to council. Based on their input. Maybe some further direction. When it pertains to a anti-displacement sub. If we don't.
So I guess to make sure I'm understanding, what we could do tonight is say we want to. At a future date after this presentation, form an anti-displacement subcommittee. Based on that future knowledge that we might not have yet,
X,
but
Y, Z.
we can still agendize
Yeah,
that.
it might provide some, the next things might provide some greater clarity
Okay.
about what a subcommittee could. Should.
Okay, and do we, I guess, partially because our goal is to have more engagement. Do we want to aim for? I guess, I think there's some logic in aiming for 3 subcommittees so that everybody can be on one.
Mhm.
So if we were going in that way, what do we think are the 3 highest priorities?
2, 3.
Yeah, that's fine. I guess that it's just so then what would we put for housing development, right? That's the one we don't really have up for
Which one for?
the first,
The
work
first
goal.
Well, we can have that one, maybe it's the improved BMR. And other, I don't.
Okay, so that would be the like collect, okay, so we'd have one that was about collecting
Well,
people's stories.
work plan goal number 1 is more of like a regular business that we already do as a commission.
But when you're running a regular business, you still wanna have good dashboards and good.
Sure.
Great decisions, so.
Yeah.
And we have some, but might be an opportunity for better.
Okay. I guess then I will. Does anyone have any other further discussion before I try to come together sections? Okay, I guess then I will suggest that I would like to revisit, creating 2 subcommittees in the future, one based on. Work plan goal number 1, which is focused on collecting data and stories from the community around, their experiences, navigating the low income housing, program and other housing like relevant experiences in the park. And a second one, which is based on the displacement, recommendations that will be made at future meetings, and we'll revisit exactly what the priority there is, but the. Candidate suggestion would be perhaps around tenant legal protection or tenant legal assistance and how that program might look. Sorry, that's not.
Exactly that.
It's something.
Well, since we have a second, maybe I'll offer a friendly amendment.
Sure.
That might concise. Provide a little bit of clarity on this. Let's see, so perhaps form 2 ad hoc committees regarding work plan goals 1 and 2. And 1 and 3, and evaluate the priorities at a future meeting.
Yeah, sure. I'm fine with that.
The last one.
And evaluate the priorities of the ASH at a future meeting.
Okay, so let's see, first motion was made by Commissioner Officer,
Yes.
and then. This is
Seconded
second.
by Trainer,
Great.
and then amendment by.
Friendly amendment.
Okay, so we have a motion by Commissioner Osler and a second by Commissioner Creighton with a friendly amendment by Chair Switzer to form 2 ad hoc subcommittees through let's see, no, to form 2 ad hoc subcommittees centering around work plan goal number 1, which is housing and development, and work plan goal number 3, which is anti-displacement. And to evaluate the priorities at a future meeting.
Yeah, only, no, not to form them, to
Oh, it said-
evaluate forming them at the future.
Yes. Okay, then I will go ahead and do roll call vote. Vice Chair Feely,
Yes.
Commissioner Chapa,
Yes.
Commissioner Dumont,
Yes.
Commissioner Creighton,
Yes.
Commissioner Osler.
Yes.
Chair Switzer,
Yes.
and then Commissioner Wong is absent. So the motion passes 6-0 with one absence.
Good.
Very nice.
All right. Well, moving on to our next item, which would be to discuss participation in the city housing and community resources fair. Provide direction to the,
Commissioner, please.
oh. Excuse me. Commissioner updates, moving along. Let's see here, so do we have any individual commissioner updates? Seeing none, back to where I was at. Going on to our subcommittee for community outreach and the resource fair update. And as a member of that ad hoc, I'll just jumpstart the conversation. We had a meeting in December, pretty fruitful. We pull up my notes here, but give a brief overview. We kind of discussed a little bit of community members to engage with, and that has been sent over to staff. Citing the Habitat for Humanity and some of the returning members, or should I say inviting members to return that attended the previous years. Also highlighting the, I always forget the name, but the free energy incentive, and those folks to attend. And discussing some potential avenues for engagement, such as Bellhaven and Power Newsletter, some electronic signs that the city has, flyers, and what that would look like to prepare some of those documents that might come a little bit later in the process as we get closer to the date. And trying to field some questions that maybe the public might have as to kind of the exact number of people on the BMR list, what that composition looks like. I think what was provided here this evening in the presentation, kind of the recertification, some of that information, just having that available or being able to have it digestible by the public at that resource fair would be important. And updating some of the city website items with the frequently asked questions and some social media exposure. And I'll turn it over maybe to Commissioner Cranen. I think you've had a meeting with a member of the public that perhaps would be fruitful with the Bellhaven Elementary.
Yeah, so I mean, I just met briefly with the principal at Bellhaven to see, but to that, get a newsletter out. They actually have a process. We have to start with, of course, the superintendent and working through the process. But they seem more than willing, I gave it, and also mentioning that Habitat has already used that process. Looks like a useful way. Just as far as coverage goes, because of the consolidation of schools, they cover broader than just Bellhaven, right? But so if we get some East Palo Alto in the mix as well, but that seems like a very concentrated way to get at least one demographic.
I think that probably offers maybe an avenue that we might not have used, say, in previous years. So that might be something to pursue.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And Commissioner Dumont, maybe you have any?
Yeah, I didn't get a copy of that email that got sent on, but so I don't. Maybe you could copy me on it, but what we talked about, I had a few things that I had heard from someone who works in the Bellhaven and lives in Bellhaven community. They talked about the Peninsula Clean Energy Program, like you mentioned, because having a presence at a city event one of their biggest issues is building trust in the community, and this would lend cachet to that. And so because when people knock on someone's door and say they have free things for them, they're suspicious, so. I thought that was a great, reason. So just some background on that. And then, let's see. Yeah, I think there also was mention, helping, and I don't know if this is on the list for the community resource fair. I don't have that in front of me, but what about helping families with college applications? I think that was mentioned.
Sorry, what?
Helping families with college applications. That's what she said.
So, and then because that, we were dealing with families who don't necessarily have those resources or that experience, but that was just something that came up.
Was the suggestion that there's a nonprofit who is offering that as a service, or they thought that would be something valuable generally?
I don't have a note about that, just that it was a way to serve that community, a resource for people.
Yeah, I mean, that there are some organizations that do that. I know I've mentioned some kids from that MA that were college bound, and there's a program that it's called now. So you get that.
Yeah, I mean, it does fit into like the pipeline part of things, it's what's thing, so.
I'll have to ask Chris.
But
Yeah, I mean, if there's a local.
Provide both money and, helping with the process.
Yeah, I mean, if there's a local group doing that, then, providing space for that might be good. They also mentioned emergency resources. And no, I think that was maybe related to what you said about the website. Commissioner, gosh, blanking. Stephen, sorry, blanking on your name. God, I'm sorry, I'm fighting. Sorry. And yeah, making emergency resources more readily available on the website. And then something about housing scams. Emergency resources, I believe, related to housing. Like if someone's losing, the story was that if somebody was losing housing and it was not easy to, get help and find out where to go when you went to the website.
I think if I recall from that conversation, kind of the where we kind of landed, or at least maybe the intent was with different, developers or landlords, they may have different leases and provide different information to their tenants contained in the leases. So perhaps if we're able to maybe create just like some one-page form of just city resources that already exist, whether they're just the non-emergency line, perhaps where certain, library or public resources are located, just kind of a little one pager of community resources that's available, that could be on the city's website, and landlords could choose to opt to add that in as a supplemental page, or just a flyer that they give to new tenants in the area, just to kind of introduce them to the resources our community have. I think we also touched on a little bit about the overnight parking policy that the city has in some residential areas. As a recent transplant in the city of Menlo Park, that was a shock to me. Having to do a little research myself to understand what areas of the city had that on it. I mean, we do have a map and there are things available, but having that maybe more readily available to a new tenant seems like it would be an opportunity that we could potentially provide something on.
Yeah, I mean, that's a little, those are things we were kind of getting a little outside the scope, I guess, of the resource fair, but those things came up when we were, talking about the various things, but I think you guys had someone at 2024, the resource fair that was doing legal services and things like that, right? Or like Project Sentinel type, or yeah. So I mean, that might help with like, I don't know for sure, but this person I talked to was concerned about scams with housing. You know, I think probably I'm forgetting the details, but I believe they were talking about you know, falsely advertised places to rent where you like put some money down and then didn't get any, you know, your money was taken. So anyway, just those were some of the notes that I had. I know we can't do everything, but those were things that were brought up by someone who lived in the community, works in the community. So,
and maybe to perhaps put a thread through this conversation, emphasis on the engagement part, since we've kind of been talking a little bit about the community, maybe just general event planning. We have a date, tentative date for the resource fair. If we can kind of work back from that, and maybe identify some deliverables of what needs to be done, of either when we're sending out an email blast to to invite members of the public, as well as some of these booth holders, if you will, that would be at the resource fair. Working back maybe a little bit further, kind of developing when maybe that flyer would need to be provided. Maybe having some other blasts on social media, kind of identifying those dates if we're working back. Would just be kind of the suggestion, if you can perhaps
The date.
ask of staff to help identify that.
It's May, May.
16th, Saturday, the 16th. At, well, maybe community campus, we're still trying. In terms of the actual hours, still trying to determine in response to, yeah, the flyer. If you have organizations in mind, because we're gonna be sending out a save the date fairly soon. So, or I suggest the subcommittee can send staff a list of organizations and we'll take a look. I mean, understanding that community resources are far and wide. The scope creep is.
Yeah, good.
So just to be able to filter down but if happy to take a look at any lists that the subcommittee, any organizations or any suggestions, be happy to take a look and review.
Yeah, I'm currently working on like a master org list of who we would like to invite to participate in the fair, and also like a timeline over the next few months, so we kind of have a general idea of when things are gonna be due and we want to send out flyers and adverts and things like that. So yeah, if you have any org suggestions, anything that comes to mind, just send it to me directly, and then I can work it into my timeline and go from there.
For example, if any of you know someone who has a taco truck who would like to give out free tacos, you know, that could be very, no, just kidding. Yeah.
So we're open to your suggestions.
and
And I see your hand still raised.
Yeah.
Commissioner Dubois.
Yeah, just real quick, one thing I maybe goes without saying is make sure that the announcements are available in at least Spanish.
Yes.
Yeah, maybe other, I don't know what other languages, but certainly Spanish.
All right. Well,
Just so you know, that the organization that does the college in East Palo Alto is Live in Peace, but they cover Valley.
okay. maybe add that one to the list.
Look forward to seeing the committee's list.
All right, well, maybe we can move on to future agenda items. If there's any suggestions from commissioners on future agenda items, I think we already had a motion for formation of a ad hoc at a future agenda.
Future agenda items.
And just as mentioned, yes, next meeting will be anti-displacement, and then following March for sure is the annual performance for the.
Are we considering, I guess, before we talked about doing the displacement again, are we considering that or? Should we?
I'm sorry, what?
Oh, sorry, when we thought we might be doing it in December, that's why we scheduled the December
Oh.
meeting at the.
Yes, yes.
Are we considering doing that again for next month's meeting or?
Yes, we are looking into it, yeah, I think we have the big room. I don't know the official word.
Yeah,
I don't know
we're
the title.
Where in the building? it will be,
Okay.
But it will be at VHCC.
Yeah,
We've been in
of course.
contact.
Yeah. Okay. They were aiming for that.
Being new, I guess I can be excused for asking, any question. Since the parking lot issue has passed, did it go through here at all? No,
No,
okay,
no, that's not, it's talking about the
Yeah,
parking lots.
Oh.
because the, they came back,
We received 3 RFPs
correct,
and, so, yeah,
it's
Not-
passed. It's like-
Yeah, I don't think that comes back through the housing commission at this.
Okay.
No, not at this point. I would suggest, the city does have a website on the city, webpage.
Yeah.
We're talking about for, more up to date, but understand that we got, the city received 3 RFP or 3 proposals.
Yeah.
I would check out their FAQs. They probably will answer all your questions.
Do you know what meeting that will be before city council? And I was guessing it'd probably be the 4th week of January or? We just.
Don't know.
Okay, I didn't see it on the agenda.
It says.
Yeah.
you have to-
Yeah, okay.
If anything, yeah.
I've heard from some people who wanted to get public comment on it, so I'm trying to keep them up to date, but,
If it's not, there's always on the council, the general public comment,
yeah,
if it's not on the agenda, so.
sure.
Maybe that's a good segue to staff updates and announcements.
The only update that has is the city council had their yearly organizational and so Councilmember Schmidt remains the council liaison for the housing commission. Yeah. Other than that, no other updates.
Well. With no other updates, we can adjourn the meeting at 7:36.
All right,
Very good.
thanks, Commissioner Demott.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.